Welcome back to another edition of the Edge podcast. Publisher Brenden Slaughter here for BeaversEdge.com, joined by Beavers Edge writer and KGO radio host TJ Mathewson. We're back here for another edition of the podcast. We're coming to you midweek following Oregon State's 42-17 win over San Jose State in week one. TJ and I will also be getting into the home opener against UC Davis this Saturday. Reser Stadium, fully renovated, fully done. It's going to be exciting. Atmosphere down 6 o'clock at Reser on Saturday. I got a chance to check it out this week when I went down, just kind of looking on the outside. And TJ, when you and I went on that tour about a month ago now, maybe a little bit less, there were still some like construction pieces in place, like 98% done. I was walking by it the other day, walking back to my car, and it's done. It's fully done. There's no sign that like anything's still under construction, no more drying paint, nothing. It is fully done and ready. And I don't know about you, man, but I'm real excited.
Yeah, how exciting is it? And we were thinking about it. The weather's going to be great that day. It's going to be a sellout. The atmosphere is going to be festive. Like you said, it's shorts weather for the time we have to be outside, and then we get to go sit in the brand new press box for the rest of it, which is going to be real nice and a treat for us. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun day on Sunday for us here at the station, starting a little bit earlier than you getting down here. But it's really going to be fun. I think people are going to be in a great mood with Oregon State athletics and this football team playing as well as it possibly could have. And what better, you couldn't have scripted a better start to the season than they had on Sunday. What a beatdown over a quality opponent. It never seemed like the two teams should be playing on the same field. That's kind of the impression I got.
Yeah, everything you said right there, spot on. And, obviously, I'm looking forward to it, TJ, because, it's been a while since it's been a tailgating season. I always love to hop around and say hello to our fellow Beavers Edge subscribers, put a name to the face and all that good stuff. So it's going to be real exciting down there on Saturday. But yeah, going back to that San Jose State game, that's exactly what happened. We didn't quite know what to expect. I think Oregon, we, as TJ and I speaking here, felt confident in Oregon State's chances regardless, kind of, leading into this season. Then San Jose State put up 28 points on USC, and it was kind of close for like 2-3 quarters to where it wasn't like, hey, they just blew them out of the water. So I think that kind of heightened Oregon State's awareness a little bit. And the same San Jose State team that scored 28 on the road in week 0 scores only 17 against Oregon State, and one of those is an garbage time touchdown, and another was set up properly by the blocked punt. So, when you really get down to it, TJ, was there really anything that was bad defensively other than maybe defensively speaking, as far as was there, other than maybe, Trice Ivy got a few penalties, but as Jonathan Smith said on Monday, my days are still blurring together this week, but on Monday when you and I were there, and he said, that's his first game from the JUCO level, trying to figure out how aggressive he can be on a weekly basis. So, you take away that special teams blunder that led to points, and then you take away, the garbage time touchdown. Oregon State played very well defensively in this game, and then obviously offensively, we started defensively. A lot to like about DJ. We're going to get into that, but the offense looked like a surgeon at work, just precise incisions all over the field.
When I look at the defense, the first takeaway I had when I was sitting here on my call-in show and I was thinking about like the one thing I was looking to see, I was expecting more pressure out of the defense, but it sounded like the game plan was never to pressure Cordero. It was
correct
to occupy a space and sit and as Trent Bray put it today when we talked to him, squeeze the pocket a little bit more than it was pure putting pressure. Now, I think this week they'll have the opportunity to put much more pressure on the quarterback. The UC Davis quarterback does not run a whole lot. He's a pretty good passer, but he's not a runner. He's got negative career rushing yards in college. So they're going to have a bit more of an opportunity with that against an FCS level offensive line this weekend. So look for that then.
Yeah.
But besides that, like the linebackers played well. The run defense was really good. The secondary, again, despite for the most part, there wasn't like too much pressure on Cordero because they're just trying to keep him in the pocket. They held up pretty well. There were, a couple penalties here and there, but Jaden Robinson balled out. The San Jose State wide receivers really weren't open at all down the field. Not like in terms of like the group you're replacing the most snaps in, there really was no no room for San Jose State to operate down the field, and it helped, the Oregon State offense knowing that they had the defense out there on the field. Which again, I was honestly expecting more out of the Oregon State defense in week one, and they still had, like you said, essentially allowed about 3 points outside of garbage time.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's I just to me the game was, we wrote about it in our previews. The game was never really in doubt, and I kind of felt that, or that Oregon State should show rather that the game was never going to be in doubt, and I think they did that perfectly. Like, obviously defensively there were some questions. There were guys in the secondary that were new. There were some new pieces in the linebacking core. I thought Calvin Hart Jr. played pretty well. Obviously, he went down with a bit of a stinger, but Jonathan said, he's likely to be fine for this weekend. We'll have more on him in our injury report later this week. But switching gears to the offense, Damian Martinez picked up right where he left off, TJ. Not a whole lot of,
Nope.
It looks
Doubt.
like just continued from where we were at the end of last season. That offensive line, stacked and talented. Receivers got open, but by far and away the most impressive thing from Saturday was just how efficient DJ was. And I
Yeah.
think just talking, amongst Beaver fans or other media members, it's been a long time since Oregon State's had a quarterback in that control. And
Yeah.
from start to finish, he was just in command, and he never looked bothered, other than one time where Damian Martinez missed a block on the edge and DJ got sacked and had a free rusher coming at him. But outside of that, TJ, almost flawless football.
So you'd say the best unit was quarterback then in the offense on Sunday? Because here's how I was thinking about it. I was trying to
close.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think what's the best unit on the field on Sunday, like that played. Like Damian Martinez, you look at it, average 8 yards a clip. Like you cannot ask running backs to do any more than that.
Right.
The offensive line was just pancake. It was just such a mismatch in the trenches when they were doing that. So you think about, okay, so the offensive line was like that. But then you look at DJ, and he could not have had a better debut. You could have not scripted a better debut for DJ. And I think the most important thing with that is, okay, so by the way, but like my pick for best unit was offensive line. Like they're the best unit on the team. I think we would both agree, and they played
I don't
like
have
it
any
on Sunday.
Yeah,
right?
No disagreements.
And that's really the engine.
Ways.
That's the engine behind both, Damian Martinez and DJU being able to operate efficiently is a good offensive line. So that's what I tie that back to. But regardless, that doesn't take away from the effectiveness of Damian or of DJ. I think the most positive thing we saw from DJ on Sunday was the versatility they used him with. They said they were going to use him as a runner, but it was very fun to see the creative ways they used him as a runner. Think of the first drive, the first third down of the game, have to pick up these yards. And they just ran a quarterback draw. Or it was a straight keeper the whole way, draw, keeper, however you want to draw it up, lead blocker in front of DJ, and he easily picks up the first down.
Right.
And then twice down at the goal line, they really need to punch it in. Okay, well, we have a 252-pound quarterback. One time he's going in on a draw with Haneli Bloomfield with a great pull and just leading the way as almost a fullback in front of him, and DJ just walks in and then sneaking in as well. I mean, that's what you want to see. I mean, using his physical abilities to his best possible, I would say, level. And then the passing game, man, accurate, efficient, down the field, all things you wanted to see on that three-man rush, third down and 14 to Jeremiah Noga. Noga's not even supposed to be running a route that's going to get caught. Brian Lindgren said yesterday that of all the years he's called that play, the guy running the clear out route straight down the middle of the field has never caught a touchdown until then, because DJ had so much time in the pocket, and Noga smartly goes right to the corner, and DJ with a perfect throw to hit him. Man, I was impressed passing wise what I saw from DJ. It's different to do it on the practice field and then go out under the lights and do it in a debut with a new school with high expectations, and he blew them all out of the water, all of them.
Right. I mean, no disrespect to the quarterbacks of the past, but it's just painfully clear how much more talented he is than, the quarterbacks Oregon State's trotted out there probably the last, decade or so. No, disrespect to anybody along the way, but DJ's ceiling is just unbelievable. He can make every throw on the field, and we tried our best to articulate that during fall camp because it just looked effortless. I mean, and it still does. I mean, you all saw with your own eyes when you could count to 7 Mississippi on his throw to Jeremiah Noga. 7 Mississippi, folks. I mean, that is so long to throw. It's almost unheard of. And like TJ mentioned, Jeremiah Noga on that very unique route, not something that typically happens on that play. But, it's kind of funny, TJ, I can't remember if it was an open practice, like to everyone, like a scrimmage or a closed one that we got a chance to see. But we saw that play to Jeremiah Noga a couple times in fall camp. He had linked up with Jeremiah Noga before, and that was good to see. And obviously, Jeremiah Noga and, Zach Card getting into the mix there at receiver. The tight ends a little bit with Jack Belling, and then obviously Silas Bold and Anthony Gould. 9 different receivers. They spread the ball around quite a bit.
Yep.
And then last but certainly not least, the cupcake of the day was getting Aiden Childs some playing time down the stretch.
Yeah, and it was interesting. They chose him first over Ben. Now, one thing I'm looking forward to this weekend, I think all 3 quarterbacks are playing this weekend against UC Davis. But, they said they, really liked what Childs offered, want to put him in there. And I thought Aiden looked good, right? And that throw that he was fading to his right. He ran up in the pocket, was running to his right, threw back across his body to Belling. The throw is just, I guess, a little late, and Belling had it swatted away. Otherwise, it would have been a spectacular touchdown. Regardless, they still walked down and punched the ball into the end zone. But that was really good to see too. I was really really impressed with that. Like, back to GJ, I'm just thinking of like one of the third downs. I think this throw went to Card or Josiah Irish. I can't remember, but they're on the far hash. It's like a 3rd down and 3, and they're passing on that down. And from the far left hash, DJ sitting in the pocket and throws a dart to the opposite sideline on the opposite hash.
Yeah.
The numbers
I think that
on the
was,
side.
was Irish.
That's a really hard pass to make. You need a lot of arm strength to do that. And, Ben's probably not, no offense to Ben, he's not all the time not making that throw all the time. He's not. And they're probably not calling that, not giving him that option to throw that. So that's just like another aspect of DJ where it's just like, wow. I mean,
and going back to that, I think Oregon State found their stride last year, TJ. And, I think Brian Lindgren, being the smart offensive coordinator that he is, he took some things out of the playbook last year when Ben, and you could tell as the year went on, they simplified things. Case in point, hey, Oregon, remember how many runs in a row Oregon State had against you? But, I digress. It was tweaked a little bit. And that's where I said, other than Jake Luton, who I think could rival as far as the arm strength, and, it's like, at least be kind of in the same breath. But Jake didn't offer you nearly as much as the runner as DJ does, even though Jake was 6'6" and DJ was 6'4", but very different body types, very different quarterbacks. So, with all that, I really do think that for the first time in Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren's tenure, TJ, the entire playbook is up for grabs. And that might be something we have to ask them in the coming, interviews and whatnot. But it really seems to me like they're going to be able to open up and do things that they really haven't been able to do before.
And I was pleased that they did open it up a little bit week 1. I mean, they could hold a lot of those cards close to their chest throughout the non-conference. 3 games you're definitely supposed to win. You're going to be favored by double digits, if like multiple touchdowns in all 3 games. So you don't have to, but I mean, we still saw some creativity with the DJ runs. We didn't see any like read option, which might happen. Mm-hmm. They might do that. I mean, they were operating DJ out of the shotgun quite often, and it would be pretty easy for them to do that if they really felt like they needed to do that. But otherwise, I mean, all the running aspects with DJ, I think we saw a flavor of them at the very least, which is good for us that we get to see. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, he really does seem like he's going to be the Jack Coletto, kind of de facto number 1 replacement. I mean, you look at his size and, the couple times, like you said, they pushed him in. I mean, 5 total touchdowns for DJ against San Jose State. He had 1 such game in 3 seasons at Clemson. So I just, and going, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Dabo wishing he didn't run DJ out of town.
Yeah, I was say hot seat Dabo Sweeney. I think he took a flight to Corvallis after to apologize.
They look terrible. Klubnik looked terrible. So it's like if maybe Duke turns out to be good this year. I mean, every 20 years Duke comes up with a halfway decent football team. But it's I I don't think they're going to be world beaters this year, TJ.
No, it
So
doesn't look
it's
like it. And they've already
so
lost, which is not doesn't help. And are they going to beat Florida State? I mean, Florida State looked pretty good. So
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a lazy example just to be like, DJ is going to be the Michael Penix of this year, or the Bo Nix of this year, or the Caleb Williams of this year, right? As far as just a transfer coming in, not even so much Caleb Williams because he was extremely successful at Oklahoma, but the other two guys that I mentioned, Michael Penix left a situation in Indiana that wasn't super great for him. Obviously, Nick's down there in Auburn going up to Oregon after not having a great situation. And I think DJ is maybe the next line of that where it's like things didn't quite work out at Clemson. I felt like he was kind of the scapegoat based on everything I was reading. The offseason was, this guy, DJ was holding them back, or, the offense wasn't as efficient as it needed to be. And the reality of it is, TJ, I think Oregon State's very pleased to have DJ, and I think DJ is going to do great things here, and I think he will thrive in this system where there's a lot less of that. But the problem at Clemson right now, they keep trying to find Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, and those were two of the most elite college quarterbacks in the last 15 years. And ho-hum, both of them are still playing on Sundays for millions and millions of dollars.
right. Right. And I mean, this isn't a Clemson podcast, so we're not going to dive into the fact that Dabo Swinney completely ignores the transfer portal and refuses to use it, which is another reason why they probably aren't all that successphul. And that quote he gave on the offense after, it was like, well, actually, we let Garrett Riley run the Clemson offense, not Garrett Riley's offense. Like, oh, then why'd you hire him?
Oh boy, yeah.
Oops.
But no, it's entertaining because I'm sure we talked about it a little bit on the radio show this week. TJ, what I wouldn't have given to been a fly on the wall in DJ's living room when he was watching that game Monday night, because I have a feeling that there's a mutual respect for his teammates that are still there, but I bet there's a part of him that's like, if they lose, not the worst thing.
He's such a nice dude, though. I don't know if he'd ever even let those words leave his mouth. I don't even know if it would be in a private setting, too, because he like seems like the most down to earth, humble person like that there is, and it's like no ill will here, there, whatever. I mean, whatever goes on like in his brain, maybe, perhaps, but
right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. And you are too. I mean, like I said, I've covered Oregon State football since 2014, and as far as well spoken and humble with the talent. The only player that comes in, he even preceded me by a couple years. The only player that comes to mind for me is Brenden Cooks. Brenden Cooks, you knew from day one when he stepped on this campus, this dude's going to the NFL. He's going to be a stud. And it was, even now, just extreme humility from Brenden Cooks. And I get the same kind of vibe from DJ. I mean, just very well-raised young man and, says all the right things. And I just love talking to him. He's just a great dude. And TJ, even back in fall camp, like, when he took that time after a very long and hot practice in August just to be like, hi, I'm DJ, and introduce and chit chat and all those things with us media, that was cool, and it really shows his character to me. So yeah, finishing that point on DJ, not only is he a great quarterback, he's a great person in my opinion too.
Yeah, absolutely. What are we looking for this week? Now we've gotten a week of Oregon State football to digest. Oregon State will probably win on Sunday or Saturday by 40.
Are you getting us ready for another Sunday game, TJ? You just want to move?
Yeah.
So instead of
we got week one of the NFL, I can't be doing that. That would be a disservice.
So does that mean Oregon State can just conference expand into the NFL schedule? I mean,
like throw them at the 1 o'clock slate on CBS.
Hey, man, I'm open minded to how we're gonna get this figured out, but. Yeah, and then also to add to your point there in the middle as we're previewing this game, Beavers moved up 2 spots in the AP poll this week. Now check in at number 16. Based on the fact that I don't think they're going to stumble in non-conference, TJ, they could get a little higher if a few teams above continue to, cannibalize themselves a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that now Pac-12 opener, if we're just looking ahead at Washington State's looking very interesting. The Cougs looked pretty good last week on the road at Colorado State. They put up over 50 points. So that's not going to be no cakewalk on the road. So I think that's interesting. And that's why I think these next 2 games are important for really getting all those kinks out of the way. Because, I mean, once Pac-12 season starts, buckle your bootstraps up. Every single team in the conference looked good last week. Every single one of them did.
How
So
about Dion?
now your quote unquote easy games. I don't have the schedule up. I can
Yeah, I
in
mean,
a
we thought it was
second here.
Colorado. Look at
Yeah, I thought it was
Dion.
Colorado, but that doesn't look like an easy game anymore. I mentioned to you after. I said the Vegas line on that game went 10 points in Colorado's direction as soon as that game finished in TCU for Oregon State. If you thought preseason that line might have been what, 14 points,
Yeah.
how the two teams are, I mean, it's probably down to like 4 or closer to a pickup now
Yeah, I mean,
because
I still
they
think
look
Oregon
good.
State's. Yeah, I think they're going. I still think Stanford is not going to be all that great this year. I think that Cal is not going to be all that great this year. I don't think Arizona State's going to be all that great this year. I don't. I think Arizona, Washington State are a little bit more middling. Don't know what to expect out of UCLA. Coastal Carolina's not a complete sample size for me. I still think there are 5 elite teams, and that's Oregon, Washington,
Right.
Utah, Oregon State, and SC. And until otherwise, I think those are still the 5 to beat and the 5 to have a shot to win the conference. Like I said previously, TJ and I kind of thought San Jose State was the marquee test of the non-conference. You could make an argument for San Diego State depending on the time of day and whatnot, but San Diego State didn't look particularly impressive in their week 1 win. So I do think Oregon State pretty much passed the first major test and the biggest test of non-conference. And as TJ mentioned, they're going to play a UC Davis team. For Beaver fans to kind of get a perspective on this, I want to jump back last season. Let's go back to Montana State at Providence Park. Montana State last year was one of the all-time, like not all, but just like in the last few years, elite FCS teams, right? I think they lost 1 game, maybe 2 when they got to the championship, because I don't believe they won the championship. And one of those losses was to Oregon State. That game, if memory serves, Montana State scored, 20 some points, and Oregon State, I think, was in the
68-28.
Good call. So so Oregon State did put up 68. So I don't even think it'll be that kind of a game, A, because Oregon State's not on a neutral site, and B, because UC Davis, they're not going to win the Big Sky this year. UC Davis is a middling Big Sky team, and in that regard, no disrespect to the Aggies, it's a perfect sacrificial lamb to the opening weekend of Reser Stadium, TJ. Like, a lot of things could go wrong and you would still walk away with a very comfortable win. So, not to say that they're not going to show up, but I think Oregon State will be able to an extent, work on some things. You mentioned to me before we got this video started, as we're recording on a Wednesday, and you were talking to Trent Bray earlier, will they open up the depth chart beyond just the 2 deep, right? Will we see all 3 quarterbacks? Will we get to see, the Beavers, Jonathan Smith got asked on Monday, will you guys just take a minute to take it all in now that the stadium's done? I imagine there'll be a guy or two who, gets a little dazed looking across at the new digs, and they're going like, wow, man, look at that. So all that to say, I think Oregon State, could kind of win this game with one hand tied behind their back, TJ.
Yeah, and the things I really kind of want to see on Saturday is like clean special teams. The problem
Yep.
is like you're like, okay, I'd like to execute some few punts. Well, how many times are the Beavers going to punt on Saturday? Maybe once.
Could be rare. Could be rare.
Yeah. So it's like, well, that might have to wait a week. And then it's like, okay, kicking field goals. And then you're asking, like, well, how many field goals are they going to kick on Sunday, too? They might just score a bunch of touchdowns because that's what you want to see. That was the one thing I was curious to see that I don't think we really got to see on Sunday against San Jose State. We didn't see any field goals. Atticus Sappington made all of his extra points, and that was fine. Jonathan said on that 4th down on the plus 24, they would have been okay kicking it or going for it, and they ended up just going for it instead. So that range right there is 41 yards. That's a 41-yard field goal from that spot on the field.
We saw Atticus hit that. We saw him hit that in fall camp.
Yeah. So, like, that's really the only question I have. No one asked him this week, I realized, how Everett Hayes is doing. Still don't know, like, where he's at, how hurt he is.
If I were to guess, TJ, and again, this may be foolish thinking, but if I were to guess, just in old Brenden Slaughter's brain here, they're like, Everett, take off non-conference. We'll check in right before the Washington State game. But at the same token, I also think that's maybe not giving Atticus Sappington his credit, because while Jonathan did say that Everett's injury played a part in Sappington winning the job, there's not an or listed on that depth chart. So if Everett comes back, does he automatically get his starting spot back? If Atticus has hit, let's just say 2 field goals and made all his extra points in non-conference, but because I really don't expect they'll need to kick a whole lot in non-conference.
No, but eventually they might need a 50-yarder.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly believe they will in conference play. So how do you handle that? Because, we talked about it last year. You talked to Everett earlier this fall camp where he said his groin injury last year impacted his confidence. Same injury.
Yep, same injury. Same time, too. So, and if Savington's kicking well, they might just not. And if
Right.
Everett's completely healthy, they might only bring him out there for long field goals. And that's it.
Right.
Like, if that's what they feel like. I mean, that's not unheard of. Colleges do that all the time. They have 2
It's true.
kickers.
And I think, it's entirely possible. Like if I were to guess, we probably won't hear a whole lot on Everett Hayes until conference opener week. That week, we could maybe see some movement on the depth chart. But based on what they did with him last year when he had that groin injury, they just kind of shut him down for like a month and like rechecked in. So given that injury happened, the last week of fall camp or the second to last week?
It was last
that
week.
Would be it. Yep. So that would be about a month. So I would say we'll check in Washington State and see what's up with Atticus there, with Everett there. But in the meantime, I think Atticus is there. Do I have confidence in Atticus kicking over 45? Hard to say. I'd say it's probably a coin toss. TJ and I saw, he's got a few distance limitations, but he seems to be the more accurate of the two. So, it will be interesting. I imagine the Beavers will continue to be aggressive, but like TJ said, I doubt there's going to be a ton of opportunities for field goals. And as you mentioned, the punt, TJ, that was the first punt, I think, in 2 or 3 years. I'm trying to remember how many years off the top of my head Luke Loescher played that Luke Loescher did not handle and kick in live in-game action. So,
Right.
And then you think about it and, maybe you saw a little bit more than me. We overlapped on practices. They didn't work on a whole lot of full live speed punting in fall camp, at least with my own 2 eyes when I was there. It wasn't, they did kind of like some go through the motions, but not kick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was mostly like I didn't hear any, like Jonathan mentioned, it was more blocking than it was on Josh Green. So
Agreed. Yes,
and I was trying to rewatch it, and I forget who's standing there blocking at the front line, but I don't think they were exactly lined up in the right spot, and that seemed like the main thing, and that's pretty important because punt blocked while you're up 4 touchdowns against San Jose State is different than in a tie game on the road against Washington State in a Pac-12 opener.
Right.
So you're gonna need to figure that out, but that won't get figured out this weekend, I doubt. Another thing I'm curious about, as we noticed against San Jose State, is like the kickoff situation. San Jose State had zero interest in kicking to Anthony Gould on punts or kicking to Silas Bolden on kickoffs. They squibbed it. They would pop it up. They would kick it short. They do all these different things. And a couple of times they tried onside kicks and it didn't look like the Beavers were totally lined up. Jonathan said they were prepared for it and they were expecting that, but they didn't. It wasn't, I would say, a clean reception of those. There was one time where I think it was Zach Carter who was back there on the back line, who had the ball go off his fingertips, and the ball ended up a yard away from a San Jose State defender. So I think that's another curious thing on special teams. It was not a perfect special teams day.
No. And I think that's definitely, that's maybe one of the things that gets cleaned up from week 1 to week 2, maybe just in practice. I mean, we don't get to watch practices, now, TJ. They may have worked on punting for 45 minutes. You never know after that. And, obviously Jake Cookus is, a solid special teams coordinator. So I expect he'll get that dialed in and worked out. But again, another thing going back to the San Jose State game and something that leans into this week is just, I'm curious to see how many guys are going to play in this game. TJ, I was pleasantly surprised. And again, awesome resource that we have at BeaversEdge.com is our snap counts that we get from Pro Football Focus each week, breaks down who played, what position, and where. And you'd be surprised, folks. If you're watching a game on TV, you might think, oh, I saw so-and-so play, but I didn't know he played that many snaps or didn't play, that little snaps. So, like, for instance, I was telling TJ before we jumped on, a couple guys that I didn't really get to notice that got into the game were, I didn't I don't really remember seeing Alton Julian out there, but he got out there for 10 snaps. And, that's a great sign to see as he kind of ramps up and gets going here in the next couple weeks. And then obviously seeing some guys make their debuts. Some guys just took one snap, two, some new offensive linemen. Very cool thing. And, I expect that list is going to expand even bigger this week, TJ, because unlike some other teams in the state, I think the Dogs will be called off very early.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think Oregon State's
a little cough in my throat there. Sorry, TJ.
I gotta say, it is kind of impressive getting 81 with the new clock rules. It's almost more difficult.
Again, just the arrogance is just blinding. The arrogance and narcissism is blinding. But yes, continue, please, DJ.
Yeah, no, I said 48.
Wait, do you think they scored 81 because they heard all offseason that someone ran the ball on them like 14 times in a row?
Perhaps, yeah.
I mean,
thought it was
maybe a little
interesting though.
frustration there, jealousy.
Vegas put out a line for them. I think the line was 48, but I don't think Oregon State gets a line this weekend. I haven't seen anything.
No, and I haven't either. But no, I mean, I expect Oregon State to be in the 50s in this game. I expect Davis to get one, maybe two scores tops. I mean, I really think it could be a 7-10 type of point outing for them. And again, I think Oregon State's going to have a lot of opportunity to really fine tune things. I mean, again. The way that non-conference schedule is smashed this year, you got a Mountain West, a middle to upper Mountain West team in the beginning, and then a Mountain West team at the end that is notoriously, tough against Pac-12 teams. And they haven't beat one in a couple years, but I go back to a couple years ago when Utah won the conference the first time. They lost to San Diego State in non-conference. So, San Diego State's one of those teams that's always really sneaky and really, prepared for Pac-12 teams. Beavers might have caught them on a good year where they're not going to be as competitive as they normally are. But this is your game to, not open up the playbook, but try some things. As TJ mentioned, you're going to get Aiden Childs in there. You're going to get Ben in there. You're going to make sure nobody is gassed. You're going to make sure nobody's overworked. I think we're going to see a lot of Isaiah Newell in this game. TJ, would it surprise you to see, Gavin Haynes or Jake Reichel in this game at running back?
No, and I was honestly kind of surprised we didn't see that much Isaiah Newell in Sunday. To be honest, it was mostly strictly Damian and then Deshaun Fenwick straight after a clear 1-2.
Right, and that was one of the things I asked Jonathan about on Monday, and he was kind of like, "Yeah, Damian was hot, so we're gonna roll with him." And I don't blame him. Damian was just finding holes with ease. 8.1 yards per carry is pretty good, TJ. That's not too shabby. But I expect that there, and then defensively, TJ and I previewed it earlier in the podcast. I expect the defensive line to really get after Miles Hastings, the Aggies quarterback, as we noted. Very different style from Chevin Cordero. Cordero was a guy who could hurt you with his arm and his legs. Miles Hastings, not that way at all. He is a zero-sum threat to run the ball. So I imagine that Oregon State is going to be pinning their ears back and really trying to tally some sacks, some negative plays, tackles for loss, all those things. And then that should allow the secondary and linebackers to kind of be able to feast. I mean, I think we saw a lot of what we wanted to see from that group. We kind of talked about it earlier, but this is a really good fine-tuning opponent. And last but not least, TJ, it's going to be an awesome atmosphere at Reser Stadium. And I think above all else, a 6 o'clock game isn't always the most ideal time, but in September, when it's going to be shorts weather and a brand new stadium, and then, oh ho hum, a game that probably is going to be over at the end of the first quarter, maybe halftime if it lingers that long. That's a pretty good treat for Oregon State fans on Saturday night, I would say.
It's going to be relaxing. There's going to be a lot of people using Beaver Street on Saturday, I would say. It's going to be a good game to use it and just relax.
Yes, it's going to be
relax
fun.
A little bit. Take the load of the week off. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be awesome. It's going to be a sellout. It's going to be packed.
Yeah,
so,
if any of you
looking forward to it.
Yeah, if any of you all listen and see TJ and I in our journeys across the stadium on Saturday, tap us on the shoulder, say hi, say what's up. We'd love to chit chat with you guys. And as always, make sure to head on over to BeaversEdge.com and catch TJ on the radio at 1240 Joe Radio there in Corvallis. So without further ado, that'll go ahead and wrap up this edition of the Edge podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Again, Oregon State gets the win over San Jose State 42-17 last week. They go to 1-0. Now up to 16th in the country and take on UC Davis at Reser Stadium Saturday night at 6 o'clock. Big shout out to TJ Mathewson for joining me on this edition of the podcast. And as always, the best co-host anyone could ask for here on the Edge podcast. So we'll be back next week, folks. We'll be breaking down the matchup with UC Davis, how that game ultimately unfolded, and then previewing the final non-conference game of the year, San Diego State, going to be on the horizon next weekend. So back-to-back September home games for you Oregon State fans. Going to be great weather, 2 good weekends in a row, so definitely get out to Reeser Stadium and check out the new digs. I know TJ and I are very excited. So again, big thanks to everyone listening. Make sure to check out BeaversEdge.com. We've got a whole bunch of content, free 30-day promo rocking right now for anyone who wants to see some of our premium content. Go ahead and head over to the front page and check that out. Big thanks again for everyone listening, and we'll catch you guys next week here on the Edge Podcast.